Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Legal Moment with Regina Sun. I am an attorney here in Atlanta, Georgia, and today's topic is Joe Paterno and the Penn State allegations. As hopefully many of you are aware of, Jerry Sandusky, I always say that name wrong, but he was recently charged with child abuse on several counts. And Joe Paterno, who was the coach at Penn State, was fired as a result of his involvement with the allegations. And I really want to get into whether or not that termination was appropriate. And I have here with me today JR, who he's a former athlete and he has a son, so he gets to speak on a different perspective than my own, because I don't have kids. And even though I am a former athlete, I didn't reach my highest potential is in the athletic arena. But before I get his perspective, I want to just provide some brief factual information that I read in the grand jury indictment. It seems that back in 2002, the graduate assistant who saw or observed Sandusky with his child, the next day he contacted Paterno, and Paterno testified that he received the graduate assistant's report at his home on a Saturday morning. Now, he states that the report was essentially Sandusky in the showers, which is on the school grounds, fondled or did something of a sexual nature to a young boy. And so about 1.5 weeks later, the graduate assistant was called to a meeting with the athletic director and the senior vice president for the school. And he reported to those two what he had witnessed, and later they told him that they were going to look into it. And at that point, about a couple of weeks later, the athletic director and the senior vice president told him that we took away Sandusky's keys to the locker's room, and we reported the incident to the Second Mile, which was a charity that Sandusky had started and was used to bring in children, at-risk children, to learn more about football. So with that information, it seems as if Joe Paterno's involvement was limited to receiving this report of fondling or something of a sexual nature, and then going to the officials to get them to further investigate it. Now, Paterno didn't get indicted because he didn't perjure himself. At least there's no evidence so far that he perjured himself to the grand jury. And under Pennsylvania law, only thing you have to do to file a report of child abuse is, first of all, you have to be a professional, because only certain professionals are required to report certain things. And you have to report it to someone. And he reported to the school officials in accordance with the internal policy that was outlined with the school. So as far as I'm concerned, he met the minimum requirements for filing this report. Now, JR, I mean, what do you think? You think he should have been terminated?
Yes, I think he should have been terminated. Mainly, number one, no one person, no one individual is bigger than the school itself. And with all the media that's following this situation, you have to try to diffuse it the best way possible. And for starters, you have to remove everybody that was part of that incident.
Well, now they didn't remove everyone. The graduate assistant is still there.
Well, McQuarrie's still there, but he's on his way out. So we might as well get ready for that.
Well, there were also reports that janitors saw the incident, and they're still there. They didn't get terminated. One was a temporary janitor, but for the most part, that temporary janitor reported it to his supervisor. They're still there. I mean, so it doesn't seem as if the school is terminating everyone that had any knowledge of this incident.
Well, they're trying to filter everything out. I mean, the whole system failed. Everybody failed. Joe Papa Joe, whatever you want to call him.
But now you say he failed, but if he had met, he did what he was supposed to do. Now, if the officials did what they were supposed to do, and that was investigated, reported to the police, reported to the children's agency, everything would have handled or fallen into place the way it was supposed to. we wouldn't be here speaking about him being fired, because we probably would have been praising him for reporting the incident so that the appropriate protocol and procedures can fall where they may. But it was the breakdown after he reported it that caused the problem.
Well, I think it was the breakdown before he reported it to them. I think he should have taken the McQuarrie to the authorities first and foremost.
But he wasn't required to do that.
Well, I mean, you have moral obligations as well, and sometimes your moral obligations take precedence over, your employer rules and regulations.
But to me, when you bring in morals, and yes, they're good for people to have ethical, standards, but you're also telling people to use their discretion. And one thing about, I represent a lot of employers, when you're telling employees to use your discretion, you're opening yourself up to a lot of situations that can end up being a lot worse than what it should have been. And again, if the school officials had done what they were trained to do, what Paterno did would have been appropriate, would have not only met what he was required to do, would have been met what he should have done, and it all would have been okay at this point.
Well, obviously, they all had a discussion about how they were going to move forward, with the situation at hand.
But when you say all, because according to the indictment, there were only 3 people that had a discussion. You had the athletic director, the VP of finance, and the president. Those were only 3 people that discussed what to do with these allegations.
Well, I'm sure they discussed it amongst themselves, and then they had another discussion with Joe. And like I said, I don't know for sure because we don't have all the facts yet.
Right. But say Joe had nothing to do with it, then would his termination have been unfair?
No.
So, why? He did what he was supposed to do, or he was required to do. He's not going to be charged criminally.
If there's something that's going on and he's aware of, he needs to make sure it gets to the proper authorities. If he goes the chain of command and nothing is done, you have to take the initiative to go to the next step, especially when it's involving children.
Well, to me, in that case, more should have been on McQuarrie, the graduate assistant, because he witnessed it, and he should have gone straight to the officials or made sure that the officials were involved given what he saw. But that's, again, something that isn't Joe Paterno's fault, because Joe Paterno didn't see it.
He didn't see it, but he had an eyewitness who claims that he's seen it. And he came to his home and told him about it. Now, they had choices from there. They could sit back and say, hey, well, we'll go to our officials later on in the day or tomorrow or next week. Or, listen, McQuarrie, we have to go to the authorities with this information.